Would you trust someone so much that you would hand over the money you saved your entire life without asking a single hard question? Before you answer, of course not, take a breath, because this is not a hypothetical. Thousands of the richest, smartest, and most financially experienced people in the world said yes to a single man, and that decision led them to ruin. His name was Bernie Madoff, and the story of how he orchestrated the largest financial fraud in history, a $65 billion hole, has very little to do with spreadsheets and investment charts. The real story is about you. It is about me. It is about the frightening and fascinating fragility of the human mind under pressure. Picture the scene. We are not talking about a random con artist working out of a dark basement. We are talking about a Wall Street legend, a founder and former chairman of NASDAQ, the electronic stock exchange. Madoff did not sell an overnight get-rich dream. He sold something far more seductive: safety, consistency. He was a safe harbor in a sea of uncertainty. Investing with him felt like being invited into the most exclusive club in the world, a place where the global elite parked their money to supposedly grow safely and steadily. Celebrities, tycoons, charities, even the most sophisticated banks on the planet lined up for a chance to get in. This is where the psychology of critical decisions starts to reveal itself. When you see a crowd of people you admire and respect, moving confidently in one direction, what is your first instinct? Do you stop and question everything, or assume they know something you do not? Have you lived a smaller version of that? That moment in a work meeting or among friends when the majority opinion feels so unanimous that doubting it sounds like pure insanity. Madoff was not a finance genius. He was a master of persuasion, engineering, and strategic influence. He instinctively understood the triggers that make us abandon logic and embrace faith. He knew that under the right pressure, the desire to belong and the fear of missing out are stronger than any rational analysis. He did not need a real product, because his product was trust itself, manufactured with surgical precision. Stay with me to the end, because decoding the Madoff method is like getting a map of the traps in our own mind. What you are about to discover may surprise you, because the same influence techniques he used on a billion-dollar scale are used on you every day in decisions, from what you buy to whom you trust. The big truth behind Madoff's house of cards is that it did not rest on complex lies, but on simple, predictable human vulnerabilities. He found the bugs in our mental operating system and exploited them with terrifying mastery. The question that really matters is not how did he fool so many people. The question is, which exact buttons did he press inside their minds? Buttons that, by the way, exist in yours too. To understand that, we first need to dismantle the perfect architecture he used to build this illusion of reality. Subscribe. That architecture, this illusion of reality, was a true masterpiece of persuasion engineering built on three master pillars that targeted our deepest emotional needs. The first pillar was absolute exclusivity. Investing with Bernie Madoff was not like walking into a bank to open an account. It was an invitation, a privilege. He cultivated the image that his fund was a closed club, almost a secret whispered among the elite. He often turned away new investors, creating absurd artificial demand. This manufactured scarcity triggered a primal desire to want what we cannot have. Being accepted by Madoff was not a financial transaction, it was social validation. It was receiving the golden key to an inner circle of power and prestige. The second pillar was unreal consistency. In a volatile market that rises and falls like a roller coaster, Madoff offered the impossible steady positive returns around 10 to 12% a year like clockwork. Rain or shine, the Madoff machine delivered. This was a balm for the human brain, which hates uncertainty more than almost anything. He did not sell explosive wealth, he sold peace of mind. He promised you could sleep soundly at night, and that promise was more addictive than any sky-high profit. Finally, the third and perhaps most powerful pillar, the aura of unquestionable legitimacy. Bernie Madoff was not an outsider, he was the system personified. As a former NASDAQ chairman, he did not just know the rules, he had helped write them. His reputation was his armor. Questioning his methods felt not only rude but ignorant. He used his authority not as a tool but as a shield that deflected suspicion before it could fully form. It is impressive and a little scary, is it not, to realize these pillars are built not on finance but on pure psychology. Before I show you the exact mental triggers activated by this architecture, I want to pause and hear you. What struck or shocked you most in this story so far? His audacity, the victim's vulnerability, or how much this resembles situations you may have seen or lived? If this topic makes sense to you and provokes reflection, take a moment to leave your view in the comments. Your perspective is the most important piece of this conversation, and reading each other's experiences makes us stronger. If you believe more people should understand these mechanisms to protect themselves, your like is how you help this message cross the bubble. It signals that this is an important discussion and helps our channel reach more curious minds. If you want to keep journeying with us as we decode the engineering of persuasion, subscribe now. Your participation fuels deeper content and turns this space into a true community that looks beyond the obvious. This exchange is essential. With the architecture of trust established, let us dive deeper. Let us name names and analyze one by one the first mental trigger Madoff pulled with the precision of a master. That first trigger is one of the most powerful and dangerous shortcuts in our mind: social proof. Think of it as ancient survival software installed in our brains. For our ancestors, following the group meant the difference between finding food and safety or being eaten by a predator. Staying with the herd was the safest decision. Today, that same instinct still operates behind the scenes, influencing our decisions invisibly. It tells us, if so many people are doing it, it is probably the right thing to do. It is a mental shortcut to save energy, but it is also a backdoor for manipulation. Madoff did not use just any social proof. He used the most potent version, elite social proof. Picture it. You are in an elegant room considering a high-impact investment. Doubt the subtle voice of prudence whispers at the back of your mind. Then casually the name of a bank director you respect, a philanthropic celebrity, or a renowned university is mentioned as one of us. What happens in that instant? A silent shift in mindset. Your personal doubt is crushed by the weight of collective credibility. The question stops being, is this investment safe, and becomes, if people this smart and successful trust him, who am I to doubt? It is a revelation of how we outsource our most critical decisions. Let me go deeper. It is not merely about following the crowd, it is about the perceived quality of that crowd. Madoff's strategy was to build a validation circle so exclusive and powerful that being outside, it created a feeling of inadequacy. The impact is devastating for critical thinking. Your rational analysis is interrupted by a stronger emotional need to belong, to be validated by that select group. This is the hidden truth behind many movements and bubbles, financial or not. Logic is silenced by the comfort of elite consensus. If the idea that group validation can override your own judgment resonated with you, pause and write in the comments, "My mind is my territory." Social proof was the perfect bait to pull people close. Once they were in Madoff's orbit, another even stronger mechanism kicked in to keep them there, silencing any residue of doubt. It turned him from a mere manager into an almost divine, unquestionable figure. This is perhaps the most paralyzing of all the authority trigger. From birth we are taught to trust and obey authority figures, parents, teachers, doctors. It is an essential social mechanism. We do not question the engineer's blueprint or the surgeon's diagnosis because we assume they have knowledge we lack. That trust saves time and usually keeps us safe. The problem is that Madoff was not just an authority, he was perceived as the ultimate authority. He was not any analyst, he had been chairman of NASDAQ. He did not just play the game, he had helped build the board and write the rules. The impact of that position on an investor's mindset is overwhelming. It creates an instant transformation where critical evaluation is replaced by reverent admiration. The backstage conversation was not about risk, but about the privilege of getting access to the master. Here is the hidden truth: Madoff's authority created a psychological force field around him, deflecting hard questions and making brilliant people feel foolish for even considering doubt. Questioning him felt like questioning the industry itself. Let me go deeper. Madoff's authority did not only generate trust, it fostered a kind of passive obedience. He did not have to sell actively, people worked to be accepted by him. The power dynamic flipped. The investor's decision-making journey was hijacked before it began because the fundamental premise was he knows more than all of us combined. This paralyzing belief is one of the most uncomfortable revelations about human nature. Faced with an authority we deem absolute, our capacity for independent thought can simply switch off. it is powerful to realize the same admiration we have for experts can be our greatest vulnerability. If you see the power and danger of this trigger, write in the comments. I am the authority of my life. We had elite social proof drawing people in and the aura of authority keeping them captive in a state of blind trust. One last ingredient was missing to seal the trap, the emotional fuel that would make people not only invest but act urgently, driven by a desperate fear of missing the opportunity of a lifetime. That emotional fuel, the force that turned interest into frantic action, is the oldest and most potent combo in human psychology: greed and its twin fear. Specifically, the fear of missing out, FOMO. Greed here was not merely wanting more money, it was subtler. The desire for a shortcut, an exception to the rule, an easy win in a game that is hard and risky for everyone else. Madoff did not sell a return, he sold the fantasy of having cracked the code, of having backstage access to the market, and he offered you a ticket to the show. But the real engine of urgency was fear. The fear of watching friends, neighbors, competitors join this winners club while you were left behind in the mediocrity of the ordinary market. One of the most powerful revelations about our decisions is that the pain of potential loss is often stronger than the joy of gain. The loss here was of opportunity, status, belonging. That feeling triggers a deep mindset shift, where prudence looks like weakness and haste looks like intelligence. The emotional double punch creates constant anxiety, a mental itch that can only be relieved by one choice: getting in. Let me go deeper. This mix of greed and FOMO is not a vague feeling, it is a chemical cocktail flooding the brain. It activates the same reward and pleasure centers triggered by addictions while simultaneously firing our alarm system. The hidden truth is that in this state we are no longer in control. Our capacity for risk analysis, long-term planning, and asking hard questions is drastically reduced. It is the mental equivalent of trying to read the fine print of a contract while the house is on fire. Rational journey abandoned, replaced by a visceral reaction. Feeling the pull of FOMO, whether in investing or any other area, is universal. If you recognize the power of this emotion, write in the comments, emotion under control. This explosive combination of desire and anxiety is not just a psychological force, it produces a real chemical and electrical reaction in our brain. It is a battle in our biology, a true hijacking of our command center that shuts off logic and hands us on a platter to anyone who knows how to push these buttons. That hijacking of our command center, this takeover that shuts off logic, has a name and an address in the brain. What Madoff and other persuasion masters do is orchestrate an amygdala hijack. Think of your brain as a company with two main leaders. On one side, the prefrontal cortex, the company's CEO, calm, analytical, long-term focused, assessing risk and making complex, rational decisions. On the other, the amygdala, the head of security. Reactive, emotional, its only job is to sound the alarm in the face of danger, or a once-in-a-lifetime survival opportunity, operating in fight, flight, or freeze mode. On a normal day, the CEO is in charge. Madoff created an environment so pressurized with fear of missing out and promises of exclusive gains that the amygdala started screaming non-stop. Danger of losing. Unique opportunity. Act now. The impact of this constant alarm is a flood of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Here is the biological backstage truth: this hormonal flood effectively cuts the line to the CEO. The prefrontal cortex, our logical center, goes partially offline. From that point, your decisions are no longer yours, they belong to this primitive, reactive part of the brain. Let me go deeper. This is not a metaphor, it is physiology. The path a person walked before investing with Madoff was carefully designed to keep the amygdala on high alert and the prefrontal cortex suppressed. Exclusivity, authority, social proof all fed the alarm system. The result is a complete mindset transformation. The person stops being an investor and becomes a survivor, fighting not to be left behind. That is why victims missed obvious red flags. Their CEO, the brain part that spots those signs, was gagged in the boardroom. Realizing this battle is biological, not a failure of character or intelligence, is one of the most liberating revelations. If this perspective brought you clarity, write in the comments, I command my brain. If our brain is biologically primed to fall for these traps under pressure, are we doomed to be victims forever? The answer is a resounding no. Because just as there are triggers that switch us off, there are mental antidotes we can use deliberately to quiet the alarm, reactivate our command center, and regain control of our own mind. These antidotes, these tools to take back control, are not complex or secret. They are a set of mental filters or psychological speed bumps we can consciously install. If Madoff's triggers worked on autopilot, exploiting our most instinctive reactions, our defense must be the opposite: deliberate, conscious, intentional. The hidden truth here is that freedom is not about never feeling fear or greed, it is about not obeying them blindly. Our strength is not eliminating emotion, but creating a space between the emotional stimulus and our response. The first step in this transformation is a new mindset. Move from passive trust to active curiosity. Think of it as the difference between riding as a passenger in your own car and taking the wheel. A passenger reacts to the scenery. The driver anticipates turns, reads signs, and chooses the route. The impact of this shift is profound because it changes how you approach any proposal or persuasive pitch. Instead of asking, "Why should I accept this?" you start asking, "Why should I not?" It is a subtle inversion that completely changes the decision game. Let me go deeper. This mindset is about reclaiming your intellectual sovereignty. It is not becoming cynical or distrustful of everything, it is becoming a private detective in the situations you face. A good detective does not believe the first version of the story. He asks questions, looks for inconsistencies, checks the backstage, and searches for what is left unsaid. Adopting this stance is the fundamental antidote to the hypnosis of authority and the pressure of social proof. It is one of the most important revelations for anyone seeking autonomy. You become the primary authority over your choices. This detective posture lets you see through the fog of persuasion and spot the structure behind the facade. That is what gives you power. If you are ready to start this journey and build your filters, write in the comments, "I create my reality." Adopting the detective mindset is the first and most crucial step. But a good detective does not work without tools. Let us explore the key questions, the magnifying glasses you can use to inspect any critical decision before committing. The first and perhaps most powerful of these tools, the first magnifying glass in your mental detective kit, is the devil's advocate. It boils down to a single question with the power to break the spell of almost any persuasive offer. Before you commit, before you fall in love with the idea, stop and force yourself to ask, if this were a complete fraud, if it were a lie from start to finish, what would the signs be? Where would the cracks show? This question is transformative. Why? Because our brain by default suffers from confirmation bias. Once we like an idea, we actively search for evidence that proves we are right and conveniently ignore whatever shows we might be wrong. It safeguards our ego and past choices. The impact of this question is that it forces a total inversion of that journey. It gives you permission to be skeptical. It shifts your mindset from "prove this is true" to "help me find the lie." If Madoff's investors had used this lens, the hidden truth would have jumped out: perfect returns without volatility do not exist. And an investment strategy no one can explain is a red flag, not a sign of genius. Let me go deeper. This question does more than make you skeptical, it reprograms your focus. By forcing yourself to look for flaws, you start seeing the backstage, not just the stage. You notice urgency might be artificial exclusivity, a tactic and lack of transparency, a danger, not sophistication. One of the most important truths about mental control is this: the quality of our decisions is determined by the quality of our questions. Change the question, and you start changing the outcome. This is the real transformation, the point where you stop being a spectator and become the chief analyst of your life. This ability to deliberately hunt for the flaw is a superpower. If you commit to using this first investigative tool, write in the comments, "Detective of my mind." Seeking the negative is the first and strongest filter. But alone it is not enough, because you are still looking from the inside out, from your own point of view. The next tool forces you to step outside yourself and break the group opinion spell. This tool, the question that breaks the group spell, is the counter-evidence check. It is simple, direct, and incredibly effective at popping the unanimity bubble. After asking about the proposal's flaws, you must change focus and ask about the consensus's flaws. The question is, who are the smart, respected experts actively saying no to this, and what are their reasons? The impact is immediate. It forces you out of the echo chamber. Social proof bias works because we only see who is inside the club. Dissenting voices are often silent or drowned out by the majority's enthusiasm. This question is a deliberate hunt for those voices. It is an active search for the missing perspective. In Madoff's case, people like analyst Harry Markopolos tried to sound the alarm for years but were ignored. The hidden truth is that apparent consensus often hides dissent that never got a stage. This question forces you to build that stage in your own mind. Let me go deeper. This is not only a question, it is a strategy to inject cognitive diversity into your decision process. It is your personal vaccine against herd mentality, groupthink. By actively seeking contrary arguments, you are doing one of the hardest, most important things in a mindset transformation, inviting conflict into your analysis. You value no as much as yes. Wise decisions are not born of easy agreement, but of rigorous debate between opposing views, even if that debate happens only in your head. It is seeing the backstage of consensus. Having the courage to actively look for opposition is what separates a follower from a leader of their own destiny. If you are ready to adopt this 360-degree view, write in the comments, "I seek the whole truth." The first question protected you from lies in the proposal. The second protected you from lies in the consensus. There is still one last trap, perhaps the most subtle and dangerous of all time pressure, the urgency that hijacks our emotions. We need a final filter to protect us from ourselves when fear of being left behind starts to scream. This last filter, the tool that diffuses the ticking time bomb of urgency pushing us into rash decisions, is the simplest and perhaps the most liberating of all. I call it the "so what" question. Faced with the pressure of a once-in-a-lifetime offer of limited spots of a bonus that expires today, you need to breathe, step back, and ask with total honesty, so what? If I miss this, what realistically happens tomorrow? Is my life over? Will I survive? It may sound simplistic, but the impact is huge. It is a direct antidote to FOMO. High-pressure tactics thrive by creating catastrophic urgency, making you believe inaction is the worst outcome. This question pops that panic balloon. It forces you to picture a future in which you did not take the offer, and in the overwhelming majority of cases, the revelation is that future is perfectly normal. The world does not end. Other opportunities will come. That simple realization drains urgency of its power and returns your most valuable resource: time. Time to think, research, let emotion cool, and allow your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, back to work. Let me go deeper. By asking this, you are executing a brilliant psychological maneuver. You are exposing the hidden truth behind most pressure tactics: scarcity is almost always artificial. It is a tool to speed your decision journey and block your other filters. By proving to yourself you survive the loss of the opportunity, you reclaim narrative control. You are no longer reacting to their stopwatch, you are operating on your own time. It is the final mindset shift, the realization that no critical decision actually needs to be made instantly. The ability to look at urgency and simply ask, so what is what makes you truly free and sovereign in your choices? If you are ready to own your time, write in the comments, "My time, my rules." With these three tools in hand, the devil's advocate lens, the counter-evidence filter, and the so what survival test, your mental armor is complete. You are no longer reacting, you are analyzing. The journey that began with the story of a great fraud has brought us to a revelation about the power we hold over our own minds. The final question is no longer how they fool us. It is how we choose to use what we have discovered about ourselves. The Bernie Madoff story is a powerful, sobering reminder that the easiest people to deceive are those who believe they cannot be deceived. The arrogance of invulnerability is a manipulator's favorite invitation. The pressure of a big decision does not create our weaknesses, it simply shines a spotlight on programming that was already running quietly in the background of our minds. The real journey here was not to understand Madoff, but to understand our operating system. By understanding the triggers of social proof, authority, and fear, you gain not only a shield, you gain a map. A map not just for dodging financial scams, but for navigating more consciously in every area of life. Think of the impact on your career decisions, on how you negotiate, lead a team, raise your kids, and even choose your partners. In all these domains, the psychology of persuasion and pressure is at play. The hidden truth is that by mastering these concepts, you are not only defending yourself, you are equipping yourself to build a life more authentic and aligned with your values. Let me go deeper. The final transformation is not about what you avoid, but about what you create. Armed with this knowledge, you can see beyond appearances, understand people's true motivations, communicate with more clarity and empathy, and above all, make decisions that serve your future rather than your immediate reactions. This is the great revelation. The study of influence is not to learn how to manipulate, but to become immune to unwanted manipulation, and more importantly, to become a more conscious leader of your own life. It is the shift from a reactive to a creative mindset. This is the journey to personal mastery, from victim of psychology to its architect. If you made it this far and commit to this path of self-mastery, write our final declaration in the comments. I am the pilot. That choice between being the passenger of automatic reactions or the pilot of your own mind is the most critical decision of all, one you do not make only once, but every day in every interaction. It is the foundation on which a lifetime of better decisions is built. That is the reflection I wanted to leave with you today. If you made it to the end of this video, it is because this conversation resonated on a deeper level. You are not only seeking information but transformation, and I am deeply grateful for your attention and your trust. So I know you completed this journey with me. Leave a comment with journey completed. It will be amazing to see who the pilots ready to take command are. If at any point you felt a spark of clarity, an aha moment, your like is the most genuine way to register that connection. We will keep exploring the backstage of the human mind and decision-making here. If this kind of analysis strengthens you and gives you tools, I invite you to subscribe so we do not lose touch and can keep growing together. Our conversation does not have to end now. There is a video queued up beside this one that perfectly complements what we discussed today. Click it and let us continue the conversation there. Thank you for your company, and see you in the next